She walked through those church doors on what was supposed to be someone else's wedding day. The guests turned, the music stopped, and the groom's face went pale. No one moved. No one spoke. Because the woman standing in the doorway was wearing the face of a promise he thought he had buried years ago. Her name was Sarah, and she had spent the last 5 years working herself to exhaustion in a foreign country, believing that the man at that altar was waiting for her. But he wasn't waiting anymore. He was about to marry someone else. This is the story of a woman who kept a promise no one else remembered, and what happened when she showed up to remind them. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Sarah Martinez grew up in a small town in the Philippines where everyone knew everyone, and life moved at a pace that felt both comforting and limiting. Her parents had passed away when she was young, her mother from complications during childbirth with her younger brother, and her father from a heart attack 3 years later. Sarah and her brother were raised by their grandmother, a woman who loved them fiercely but struggled to provide for them on a pension that barely covered rent and food. Sarah learned early that if she wanted a different life, she would have to fight for it herself. She was smart, hardworking, and determined. She finished high school at the top of her class and enrolled in a nursing program at a local college, working part-time at a pharmacy to pay for her books and tuition. It was exhausting, but Sarah never complained. She had a vision for her future, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make it real. During her second year of nursing school, Sarah met Michael. He was a few years older, working as an electrician, and he attended the same church as Sarah's grandmother. They met at a community event, one of those gatherings where families brought food and shared meals after Sunday service. Michael noticed Sarah sitting alone, reading a book while everyone else socialized. He walked over and asked what she was reading. She looked up, surprised that anyone had noticed her, and told him it was a textbook for her anatomy class. Michael smiled and said he admired people who worked hard for their dreams. That conversation turned into another, and then another. Within a few months, they were inseparable. Michael was steady, reliable, the kind of man who showed up when he said he would and kept his promises. He wasn't flashy or wealthy, but he was kind, and that mattered more to Sarah than anything else. He supported her ambitions, encouraged her to keep studying, and never made her feel like her dreams were too big. Sarah felt safe with him, like she had finally found someone who understood her. They talked about the future constantly. Michael wanted to save enough money to start his own electrical business. Sarah wanted to finish nursing school, work for a few years, and eventually help her brother go to college. They dreamed about getting married, buying a small house, starting a family. It all felt possible when they were together. But then, in Sarah's final year of nursing school, an opportunity came that changed everything. A recruitment agency visited her school, offering contracts to newly licensed nurses who were willing to relocate to the United States. The pay was significantly higher than what she could earn in the Philippines, and the agency promised support with visas, housing, and job placement. Sarah's classmates were excited, but Sarah was conflicted. She had never imagined leaving her country, leaving her grandmother, leaving Michael. But she also knew that this opportunity could change her life and her brother's life in ways that staying never could. She talked to Michael about it one night, sitting on the steps outside her grandmother's house. She told him about the offer, about how much money she could save, about how she could send money home to help her grandmother and her brother. Michael listened quietly, his face unreadable. When she finished, he asked her what she wanted to do. Sarah didn't know. She wanted to stay with him, but she also wanted the life that opportunity promised. Michael took her hand and said, "If this is your dream, you should go. I'll wait for you. We'll make it work." Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. She asked him if he was sure, if he really meant it. Michael nodded. "I love you. Distance won't change that. I'll be here when you come back, or I'll find a way to come to you. Either way, we'll be together." Sarah believed him. She believed in the promise they made to each other that night, sitting under the stars, holding hands, imagining a future that felt just out of reach but still possible. 3 months later, Sarah passed her nursing board exam, signed a contract with a hospital in California, and boarded a plane to the United States. Michael was at the airport with her grandmother and her brother, holding her as she cried, whispering that everything would be okay. Sarah looked back at him as she walked through the gate, memorizing his face, holding onto the promise they had made. The first year in California was harder than Sarah had imagined. She worked 12-hour shifts at a busy hospital, taking care of patients who were sicker than anyone she had treated in nursing school. The work was physically and emotionally exhausting. She lived in a small apartment with 2 other nurses from the Philippines, sharing a bedroom and splitting bills to save as much money as possible. Every dollar she didn't spend on herself, she sent home to her grandmother and her brother. She called Michael whenever she could, but the time difference made it difficult. When she finished her shift, it was the middle of the night in the Philippines. When he finished work, she was just starting hers. Their conversations became shorter, less frequent, filled with long pauses where neither of them knew what to say. Sarah told herself it was temporary, that once she saved enough money, she could bring Michael to the United States or go back home for a visit. But months turned into a year, and a year turned into 2, and the visits never happened. Plane tickets were expensive, and every time Sarah thought about using her savings for a trip, something else came up. Her grandmother needed medicine. Her brother needed school supplies. The apartment rent went up. Life kept demanding more than she had, and the promise she made to Michael started to feel further and further away. Michael, for his part, tried to stay faithful. He worked long days, saved money, and told his friends and family that he was waiting for Sarah to come back. But waiting is lonely, and loneliness is heavy. He attended church every Sunday, and there was a woman there, someone he had known casually for years, who started paying more attention to him. Her name was Grace, and she was kind, attentive, present in all the ways Sarah couldn't be from thousands of miles away. Grace would ask Michael how he was doing, invite him to community events, bring him food when she knew he was working late. At first, Michael appreciated the friendship. It felt good to have someone who cared, someone who was there. But over time, the friendship became something more. Grace didn't push. She just existed in his life, filling the space Sarah had left behind. Michael told himself he was just being friendly, that it didn't mean anything. But deep down, he knew he was lying to himself. 3 years after Sarah left, Michael proposed to Grace. He told himself that Sarah had moved on, that the distance had made it impossible, that he couldn't wait forever. Grace said yes, and they set a wedding date 6 months later. Michael didn't tell Sarah. He convinced himself that she was living her own life, that she had probably met someone else, that the promise they made was just something young people say when they don't know any better. He buried the guilt and focused on moving forward. Sarah, meanwhile, had no idea. She was still working, still saving, still believing that one day she would go back home and Michael would be there waiting. She had finally saved enough money to file a petition to bring Michael to the United States on a fiancé visa. It had taken her years, but she had done it. She was so proud, so excited to tell him. She called him one evening, her hands shaking as she waited for him to pick up. When he answered, she could hear the hesitation in his voice. She told him about the petition, about how they could finally be together. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Michael said something that shattered her. "Sarah, I'm getting married." Sarah didn't understand at first. She laughed, thinking he was joking. "Married? To who?" Michael's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Her name is Grace. We've been together for a while. The wedding is next month." Sarah felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her. She couldn't breathe. She asked him if he was serious, if this was real. Michael said yes. He said he was sorry, that he didn't know how to tell her, that he thought she had moved on. Sarah hung up the phone and sat in her apartment, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She had spent 5 years working herself to exhaustion, believing in a promise, believing in him. And he had given up. She didn't sleep that night. She just sat there, replaying every conversation, every message, every moment they had shared. And then, something inside her shifted. She wasn't going to let this end without facing him. She booked a flight to the Philippines, not to stop the wedding, but to see him one last time, to understand how the man who promised to wait had become the man who was marrying someone else. She arrived 2 days before the wedding. She didn't tell anyone she was coming. She stayed in a small hotel near her grandmother's house and spent the day walking through the town, remembering what her life used to be. On the morning of the wedding, Sarah woke up early, put on a simple dress, and walked to the church. She stood outside for a long time, listening to the music, the laughter, the sounds of a celebration she was never invited to. Then she opened the door. The church went silent. Every head turned. Michael, standing at the altar in a suit, looked like he had seen a ghost. Grace, standing beside him in her wedding dress, looked confused, then concerned. Sarah walked down the aisle slowly, her eyes locked on Michael. She didn't say anything at first. She just walked until she was standing a few feet away from him. Then she spoke, her voice steady. "I kept my promise, Michael. I worked for 5 years. I saved every dollar I could. I filed the papers to bring you to me. I kept my promise." Michael's face crumpled. Tears filled his eyes. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She handed it to him. Inside were the documents for the fiancé visa petition, proof that she had done everything she said she would. Michael took the envelope with shaking hands, staring at it like he couldn't believe it was real. Sarah looked at Grace, who stood frozen, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Sarah's voice was soft but firm. "He was mine before he was yours. But I'm not here to take him back. I'm here to let him go." And with that, Sarah turned and walked out of the church. Outside, the sun was bright, almost blinding. Sarah stood on the steps, breathing in the air, feeling lighter than she had in years. She had done what she came to do. She had faced the truth, and she had let it go. She didn't wait to see if Michael followed her. She didn't look back. She walked to the hotel, packed her things, and flew back to California the next day. In the months that followed, Sarah focused on herself. She realized that she had spent so much time fighting for a promise that she had forgotten to live her own life. She started taking weekends off, exploring the city, making new friends, trying new things. She went back to school and earned a degree in nursing administration. She got promoted at work. She started dating again, slowly, carefully, learning to trust again. And eventually, she met someone who saw her for who she was, not who she used to be. Someone who didn't need her to sacrifice everything to prove her love. Someone who showed up, consistently, honestly, without needing a promise to bind them. As for Michael, he went through with the wedding. But the marriage was never the same. Grace had seen the look on his face when Sarah walked into that church. She had seen the tears, the regret, the realization of what he had lost. Grace spent the rest of her life wondering if she was his choice or his compromise. Michael lived with the weight of knowing he had let go of someone who had fought for him when no one else would. And Sarah? She learned that the hardest promises to keep are the ones made to yourself. She learned that love isn't about waiting. It's about showing up, being present, being honest. And she learned that sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from the people who couldn't see your worth. So here's what I want to ask you. If you were Sarah, would you have gone to that wedding? Would you have confronted Michael? Or would you have stayed away? And have you ever kept a promise that no one else remembered? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your story. And if this reminded you that your worth isn't determined by who stayed or who left, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep sharing stories that are real, emotional, and remind you that you're stronger than you think. Next time, I'm going to tell you about a man who discovered his wife had been saving letters for their children in case she didn't survive cancer, and what those letters said changed the way he saw their entire marriage. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, the people who truly value you will never make you beg for their presence.